James rubbed his eyes as he floated through the dimly lit corridors of the research station. Threshold 7, 3 months into humanity's first deep space xenobiology mission. And the circadian rhythm disruptors still hadn't adjusted properly to the station's 26-hour rotation. The coffee dispenser in the galley had malfunctioned again, leaving him irritable and desperate for the synthetic caffeine tablets stored in the medical bay. The station orbited Kepler 442b, a super-Earth in the habitable zone some 1,200 light-years from home. After decades of radio silence from the cosmos, humanity had finally made contact not through SETI arrays or careful diplomatic overtures, but through a mathematical proof. The Riemann hypothesis? Solved at last by a collective of alien mathematicians who broadcast their solution across subspace frequencies humanity had only recently learned to detect, the Athara. They called themselves crystalline-based life forms who thought in geometries humans could barely visualize. Their biology was so fundamentally different that standard planetary protocols meant nothing. Where humans needed oxygen and organic compounds, the Athara required specific electromagnetic frequencies and trace amounts of heavy metals suspended in gaseous form. Aliana was the first of her species to agree to cultural exchange. She'd arrived 6 weeks ago in a vessel that bent light around itself, making it appear as though space itself was folding. James had been part of the welcoming committee, watching as she emerged, a figure roughly humanoid in shape, but composed of interlocking crystalline structures that refracted the station's LED lights into impossible colors. Her face, if it could be called that, was a constantly shifting lattice of transparent facets. The medical bay door was partially open, which struck James as odd. Protocol dictated that all doors remain sealed to maintain atmospheric integrity in each section. The Athara quarters were specially designed with argon-rich environments and embedded electromagnetic generators. But this was a human section. Aliana? James called out, pushing the door wider. The atmospheric sensors are showing. He froze. The medical bay had been transformed. Every piece of equipment, the diagnostic scanner, the surgical arms, the bioregeneration pods had been carefully disassembled and arranged in a precise geometric pattern across the floor. The components weren't damaged, but repositioned with mathematical precision, forming what looked like a massive mandala of technology. At the center knelt Aliana, but she looked nothing like the composed, crystalline diplomat who attended the daily briefings. Her structure had partially deconstructed, her crystalline lattice separated and floating in the air around her, connected by threads of pure light. She was, James realized with sudden clarity, completely vulnerable. This wasn't her public form, this was something private, something intimate. Her primary consciousness matrix, usually hidden deep within her chest cavity, was exposed and pulsing with bioluminescent patterns. James. Her voice came not from any vocal apparatus but directly through his communication implant, carried on modulated radio waves. There was something different in her tone, embarrassment perhaps, though James wasn't sure if that emotion translated across their species divide. I did not expect anyone for another 47 minutes. I'm sorry, I should have. James backed toward the door, his face burning. I'll just wait. The words stopped him. Slowly, Eliana's crystalline components began reassembling, the geometric pattern on the floor dissolving as she reintegrated each piece back into her primary structure. You have already seen. There is no purpose in pretending otherwise. James forced himself to look at her, or at least at where her face would reform. What were you doing? If you don't mind me asking. The last of her components clicked into place. She stood, her full form restored, but something in her posture seemed different. More guarded. We call it Kishara. The closest translation in your language would be meditation, though that word fails to capture the quantum mechanical nature of the process. Quantum mechanical meditation? Aliana moved to the observation window, where Kepler 442b dominated the view, its blue-green surface swirling with storm systems. My species does not experience consciousness the way yours does. Your neurons fire in chemical cascades, bioelectrical impulses racing through organic pathways. We are different. Our consciousness exists as quantum states distributed across our crystalline matrices. Coherence, decoherence, superposition, these are not metaphors for us. They are literal states of being. James approached slowly, giving her space. And Kishara is what? Resetting those quantum states? Partially. She turned, and the facets of her face caught the planet's reflected light. When I maintain my integrated form, my consciousness collapses into classical states, decisions, observations, interactions with matter that behaves according to standard physics. But to maintain quantum coherence, to preserve the superposition that allows my people to think in ways your species cannot yet conceptualize, I must periodically deconstruct? You have to fall apart, James said quietly, to remember how to be yourself. Something in Aliana's structure resonated, a harmonic frequency that James felt in his bones. It took him a moment to realize it was laughter. An adequate translation, she said. But more than that. In my separated state, I am probabilistic. I exist in multiple states simultaneously. I am not one consciousness observing the universe. I am many potential consciousnesses exploring many potential universes. All at once? James tried to wrap his mind around it and failed spectacularly. That sounds lonely. Lonely? Aliana's facets angled toward him, curious. You misunderstand. It is the opposite. In my integrated form like this, I am singular, isolated, but when I deconstruct, when I allow my quantum states to explore superposition, I am connected to every version of myself that could possibly exist. I am infinite. Then why did you seem embarrassed when I walked in? The question hung in the air between them. Finally, Aliana spoke, her radio wave voice softer than before. Because in that state, I am also vulnerable to reconstructing correctly, to have my quantum coherence disrupted by external observation at the wrong moment. It could collapse me into a state I did not choose. Your species has a similar concept, I believe. The quantum Zeno effect. Observation preventing transition. James understood then. He hadn't just walked in on a private moment, he'd walked in on something existentially dangerous. His very presence, his observation, could have trapped her in a state of being she hadn't intended. I'm sorry, he said again. Meaning it more deeply this time, Aliana's structure seemed to soften, her crystalline edges becoming less sharp, more curved. You could not have known. And perhaps it is not so terrible that you have seen. Your people and mine are learning to understand each other. Understanding requires vulnerability. She extended one crystalline appendage. James, after a moment's hesitation, reached out and touched it. It was neither warm nor cold, but vibrated with a frequency he could feel in his fingertips. Thank you, Aliana said, for looking away when you could have stared. James smiled. Thank you for trusting me with the truth. Outside the window, Kepler 442b continued its eternal rotation, and two species separated by evolution, physics, and fundamental reality itself took one more small step toward genuine connection.